Hey everybody, welcome to Love and Reload, the voice of the relocation industry. I'm your host, Ben Cross. I'm here in beautiful, sunny Broadview, Illinois, home of National Van Lines with my good friend. I'm so blessed and honored to be here with Tim Helenthal, CEO of National Van Lines. How you doing, Tim?
I'm doing great, Ben. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate the hospitality. You guys really roll out the red carpet. It's beautiful here today.
The sun is shining.
Usually that works.
5 or 7 degrees below zero, but tomorrow it'll be 25 and it's going to feel really warm for those of us that live here. So
I
it'll be
feel
great.
like I literally picked the coldest day of the year to come to Chicago.
That's what we wanted you to have this experience so you can understand how it builds character for those of us that live here.
You know, it really does. I feel harder working already. Sandra Clary checking in. Can't wait to, yes, look at this. Yeah, bringing the great convo. Hey, we're going to be talking about a lot of things today. We're here at National Van Lines headquarters. Talk a little bit about the company. Amazing company. Tim's one of the most thoughtful, insightful people in our industry. He's also really funny too. And so we're going to be chatting about a bunch of things. But the real thing today that we're going to kind of double click into is the global household goods contract. I mean, this is the biggest contract. I'm saying the biggest contract in the history of household goods moving
I think that's correct.
in the history of the
absolutely.
world, something like that.
Ever.
Mostly. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the state of affairs currently and some of the challenges that have kind of cropped up recently. I'm hearing a lot of, I'm using the word scuttlebutt. I'm bringing this word back, Tim, scuttlebutt.
It's a great word.
Yeah, we're bringing it back because we're hearing a lot of things going on. Get in the comments. I want to hear what you're thinking about. What are you hearing right now about the global household goods contract? Hit that like button. Let everybody know we are live. We got Fred Metzler checking in, Tim and Ben from Toad Suck, Arkansas. 25 here today. That's a balmy 25. Love
Nice.
that.
Delightful.
Jana checking in. Happy Tuesday, everyone. Really excited to hear from Tim. Me too. Looking forward to it. Let's see here. Tim, I want to go ahead real quick and kind of, well, first I wanted to ask you about National real quick. Tell us just real quick for people that may not be familiar with National Van Lines. I mean, you have a huge reputation, on the military and government side. You guys do a lot on the COD market as well. But tell people a little bit about National because some may not be aware.
Sure, I'd love to. National Van Lines can trace its history back to 1929. So we've been in business for 95 years.
Wow.
We were one of the kind of innovators in the space back then. We, originally started as a full-service local moving agent. Eventually became a van line. We're one of the first companies to get 48 state operating authority back when that was hard to get. And we created.
So did they used to give the authorities out by state?
Yeah, because you didn't have the authority to cross state lines. Wow. So it was a lot more difficult. And that's kind of the history of the industry. And you look at how these van lines come together. And you look at the names that are out there of some of the guys that are still standing. You have Allied Van Lines and United Van Lines. These were independent carriers that had created a larger footprint for themselves through a van line network. And that's where we got our real start at as well, where we really started seeing a lot of growth. In the 70s, mid-70s or so, we started up National Forwarding Company. Within National Van Lines, we operated as a separate company to really focus our attention on the Department of Defense moves because it is the largest single national account in the world. It accounts for somewhere in the vicinity of 20% of all domestic relocations. So we did that in the mid-70s. I came on board in 1994 in the company in National Forwarding, working in the claims department. We've seen a lot of growth over the years. So we operate. Currently now we operate the van line as a traditional van line where we have agents that represent us around the country. We have an international division that ships folks anywhere worldwide. We have our forwarding company that handles all the things with the Department of Defense. And in the last 3 years, we went back to our roots and started up Mighty Moving and Storage as a full service moving and storage company here in the Chicago area.
What's that about? Real quick. I mean, what's Mighty Moving about?
Mighty Moving is, really our efforts to diversify our revenue streams and to kind of, again, get back to our roots. I think it really benefits me as the CEO of a van line to really have firsthand experience about what agents are going through. I think it's really given me a lot of good perspective. And I think there's a lot of opportunities for us in this market, in the Chicago market. from a local moving standpoint, but also all the other things that you can do when you are combining labor, warehouses, and trucks. So I think we've got a great footprint. We've got a great leader over there that's got us started, Robbie Seidel, that we just named as president of Mighty Moving.
Okay.
And we've been in the black. We were in the black in 2024. We're close in 2023 as a new business.
2024 was a tough year to be in the black too.
We took market share in 2024, and we're super excited about what we're going to do in 2025.
Nice. Yeah. Hit that like button. Get in the comments here if you got questions for Tim. Really interesting. Just before we get into the military side of things, the Mighty Moving concept, I really like this concept because when I look at the growth in the household goods moving space in the last 15 years since I've been here, really you've seen these local movers that have really grown, whereas the van lines have found it tough. The van line value prop is kind of under fire in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. But the local movers have really done well for themselves, and you've seen all these kind of independents pop up and these large networks of national players. And, that's a really interesting play.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense for us to do. And if you look at the pie of everybody that's moving, 86% of the people are moving locally or within the same state. And our focus has been on that 14% that does long distance moves. And it just makes sense for us to get involved in the larger piece of the pie.
Yeah, for sure. Super interesting. Get in the comments here. I want to hear what you're thinking here. Logging in from Hilton Head, South Carolina, where it might snow tonight. Yeah, it's cold everywhere right now. Dick Scaffa checking in. Hey, Tim, what's up, Dick? Good to see you. Jillian Guzda, excited to hear from you both today. Get in the comments. I'm going to try to read it with my eyes aren't getting any younger, Tim, to be honest with you.
Got to get glasses and just give in.
I just give in, right? John Alianello checking in. What's up, John? Good to see you there. Let's get into the GHC, though, because that's been the talk for a long time now. Give us, for people that may not be acquainted, a real quick little synopsis of the GHC, what it is, and kind of how we got here.
Sure. Yeah, the GHC started back when I wasn't wearing glasses all the time. I guess the military has a long history of re-engineering the personal property program. And going back to when I started at National in 1994, it wasn't too long after that there was a memo that went out that said, hey, they're going to redo the whole program. And at that point, I thought I was going to be out of a job. Eventually, it's become a career, right? But in the 90s, there was a series of pilot programs that the government ran, and folks that have been around, full service moving projects, Navy Sailor Arranged Move, some of these, and out of that, they kind of combined them all, took lessons learned, and came up with what was DP3, what is the current DP3 program. And that was built entirely around the idea of we need to measure customer satisfaction. The customer is our North Star. It's their voice that's the most important thing. And that's the program we were in for a long time. We never were able to get really great results from surveys. We never got a high response rate. So I think that program always suffered from a lack of effort really on the part of the DoD to make sure that we were getting a high return rate from military customers. But then what happened in 2018 is there were some service failures that occurred during that peak season. And, if you're in the moving business, summer is the peak season. When you operate at peak capacity, that's when you have problems. One failure becomes 4 failures. There's a ripple effect. And there were some service failures that year, and it resulted in some congressional inquiries from service members talking to their congressmen saying, hey, I demand satisfaction. I'm a military member. I demand satisfaction. You guys got to fix this. And then there was also a petition that went around that Megan Harless had started that said, hey, our military members deserve better. And there was some other social media outcry. So General Lyons, who was the 4-star that ran Transcom at that point in time, made the decision that he needed to outsource this to what he characterized as one throat to choke. Mm-hmm. He wanted to have accountability. He looked at the current program and said, hey, I've got, like 800 providers. I want to have one. I want to have, someone that I can hold accountable. Now, all of us that were in the room and that talked to him at this time said, you have ways to hold us accountable. Yeah. But I think he was of the opinion that he knew better. And so that was when the Global Household Goods contract was put on the street. There was a lot of pushback on it initially. I've been consistent in my complaining about it really since the start. I mean, even though we did join a bid team and try to be a part of the winning team, we still think that there are a lot of problems with this program because it's not just one throat to choke. It's a single point of failure. And if they fail, you're in trouble. You don't have any resilience in your supply chain.
Yeah, and we've seen this before with other military contracts, haven't we? Where they've gone to a sole source or a single contractor. I mean, I think the base housing was one of them.
That's one of the ones that's consistently compared with this. It's the base housing, privatized housing.
How did that go?
It went terrible. I mean, just Google it. Like, for those of you that are playing along at home.
Yeah, put a link to our somebody real quick. Google that and just link it for those who are watching out there in the comments there.
But it's been a failure, and I think that's one of the challenges and one of the concerns that I had about the program from the start is that, if you do hold that contractor accountable, what do you do then? Because the other part of this too, and I've talked about this before, is that even under the best of circumstances, this is a really hard thing to do. If you had all the movers going, hey, we cannot wait to get to this new program, you still have the new contractor standing up a brand new IT system. You have the government.
That never works either.
You have the government standing up a new IT system. You have to train all of the military bases. You have to get all the movers trained on new software. Like, it's from a change management standpoint, this is a gigantic undertaking.
Yeah.
So when you add on top of it some of the challenges that we see with the way the contract was put out, I think it just is a recipe for a challenge.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Get your questions in the comments. We just let anybody in. Melissa Helenthal. Hi, Dad, you're famous. What's up, Melissa?
They'll let anybody in here.
They really will, no cover charge. The public comes in. Nolan checking in for from the land. You gotta help me out here. Jake Peroni checking in. Melissa Helenthal, your dad was already famous. We all love him. That's the nicest thing Jake's ever said. Dick Scaffa. Yeah, look at this. Freezing here in the DMV, checking in. Fred's got a question here. Look at that. Didn't see that coming. Mike Klarner, looking forward to the discussion. Get in here. Gosh, that's, I kind of want to take, we're going to take questions. We're going to honor your questions here. Get them in. Tim can answer them as he can, as he sees fit. Do we know how home not safe is being compensated? Flat rate, off tariff, per the job. Do you know anything about the way that the prime contractor is compensated in this arrangement?
So everybody filed rates based on channels, and we had understanding of what volumes were in those channels.
Yeah. And I would imagine that the job for the contractor is to try to, you get to work for one price and you get it done for another and you make money on the spread. That's what I would imagine the business model is, Fred, but I don't know. I'm not a prime contractor in a large government contract. People checking in here. Kevin Arpin checking in. William Joyce Jr. checking in from Indiana. Georgia checking in. Awesome conversation. Yeah, get the questions in there. So let us know. So here we are, and the contract's been awarded, right? And it's really taken a while to kind of get off the ground for all the technical issues you talked about. I've heard that they're having trouble, getting folks to support it. Service providers to support it. Where are we right now, middle of January, sitting here talking about this? What is the state of the program?
So right after the contract was put out to bid, there was protest and it was turned over, and then it was finally awarded, and it went through this whole process, and it's been in the current contractor's hands now for 2 years. That was after
2 years.
Yeah, 2 years since there were no more protests that anybody could make.
And where are we though? 2 years
so,
in,
So 15 months after that 2 years started, that 2 years kind of began. The first shipments were moved back in April. I think Mr. Joyce actually moved the first one, who's joining us here. So it took about 15 months to get that first shipment moved. In between April and the end of the year, there were about 1,000 total shipments that were moved or awarded. to the contractor.
1,000.
1,000.
How many typically move in a program?
So there are 150,000-ish domestic moves every year. There is also a number of local moves that are moved, and we don't really have a good number on that. I don't have a good number on how many that is. So it's less than 0.1%.
Okay. Less than 0.1%. So really just kind of almost just enough to like test the software and.
Absolutely. And during that time, we were made aware that there were some challenges with getting the software up and running. Transcom had taken on the position of a conditions-based rollout. This is what was expressed to us during various communications opportunities that we had to be in the same room with Transcom, that they were based on conditions. And they kind of had a filtering program they had built to say, hey, if your shipment needs storage, you got to go into the current program because our software isn't able to handle storage yet. This is one of the things they were working on. And then once it was able, then it could potentially be eligible to go into the global household goods contract. So that went on for a period of about 9 months where they were kind of trickling shipments into the system, mostly local shipments.
Yep.
Started doing some interstate shipments, I think, near the end of last year. And then from what we understand is that beginning on or about January 1st, the decision was made to dramatically ramp up the volume.
When was that announced that they were going to ramp up the volume?
So there was no announcement that was made to industry. And
How did we even hear about it?
So we started hearing about a few different things that led us to understand that this was occurring. One is that we started hearing more complaints from service members. Two, that all of a sudden there became a list of shipments that was being sent around that needed service providers, that was sent around from the contractor saying, hey, we're looking for service on this. And that hadn't existed before. And actually that was contrary to what we'd been told, which was, there's not going to be a load board. And this industry has always worked. Almost everybody has some kind of a load board, whether it's for, it's really for their interline carriers to go, hey, if you've got a hole on your trailer, maybe we can fill it. Look here. And, it's all with folks that we have that are vetted and we have agreements with.
That was always one of the most fascinating parts of this industry when I first got into the military side of the business, was that these load lists or load boards would kind of go around, sometimes in an email or whatever. And once you're, an approved service provider, you get access to the tonnage list for these different, carriers. And you could see, how, origin, destination, how many pounds, what the discount was, what the date was, the pack date or the RDD was, the, required delivery date. And I just found that to be fascinating. As a person who had fought for shipments my whole life, where's the moves?
Right.
Where do I find the moves? And then they're just in an email for
right.
for the getting,
Right.
And I always thought that was really interesting. And I always tried to kind of reverse engineer operationally how we could support that and actually make money doing it. And that was kind of a big aha moment for me when I first got into this space, which led me then to go and try to get our company in the program that I was running at the time. But you're saying there was a problem with that business model, they thought, or they were, or what place did those have in the new program?
We were just told that it wasn't going to exist, and we'd been kind of told
wasn't
that
going to be allowed, or
they just weren't going to have one. I guess in the idea that they weren't going to need one.
Yeah.
That one of the concepts was that as a National Van Lines, as a hauler, that we would be given full trips. So there wouldn't be a need for us to go and get.
So they're going to build the load for you, the trip for you, and you
right,
need to put it together.
Right, and that's kind of contrary to the way, though, that our business works, and the reason why all these load boards help us generate efficiency in our industry is because, as a van line, I don't know where that next customer is going to be coming from. That next customer that comes and visits my website and puts in a lead, and we reach out to them, they could be coming from any town in the United States. And so I am constantly our operations team is constantly trying to build loads off of the shipments that we have. And then there are always going to be opportunities for us where, hey, we've got some space on our truck. Can we work with one of our partners? That's why in this industry we have so many companies that might be competing in some realms that are also hauling for shipments to help the other company out, because at the end of the day, we need to make sure that our drivers are profitable, because they're the ones that are providing the on-site service to our customers and really sealing the deal for what we're trying to provide to those guys.
Yeah, and the concept of like ready-made trips with like, 3 shipments and it fits perfectly on a trailer, that's one of those concepts that, I've thought about that in my career, when I was further from the curb, right? When I was like hadn't been exposed to actually moving shipments. But the closer I got to actually moving shipments, I realized, well, oh crap, like sometimes shipments go big, or sometimes they go small, or sometimes people change their dates because their home closing falls through, or sometimes the guy has to get an emergency appendectomy, and all of a sudden this is a pickup, right?
That's exactly right.
And it's like, and these things happen, and they happen a lot. Like when you think about how many human parts are like involved in this.
Well, it's the idea of the black swan event, if you're familiar with that concept of, an innumerable number of white swans doesn't prove that there's no black swan, but it only takes one black swan to prove that there are black swans. So there's these black swan events, they're unpredictable. Like in our industry, we know they're going to happen, and we know what most of them are. Again, it's the house doesn't close, it's bad weather, it's traffic, it's a breakdown, those kinds of things. We know those things are going to happen. We just can't predict when.
Yeah.
And that makes it really challenging for us to be able to commit to doing full loads like that. And another thing I'll say too is that every professional van operator is different. Every crew is different. Some drivers and their crews are able to get a lot more tonnage on a trailer than other crews. So it's kind of not one size fits all. And that's why having like here our operations team, our dispatchers, what we call transportation specialists, know what those drivers' unique capabilities and capacities are, and are able to work with it from that standpoint.
Yeah. Hit that like button. Get your questions in here. We're going to ask as many of them as we can to Tim. He'll take a crack at them. I'll take a crack at them. But yeah, get them in the comments. I see some really good ones coming up here. I just want to finish this thought before we get to some questions here. I see you, Roger. I see you, Daisy, Mike Falia, Don checking in, Rachel. Keep them coming, y'all. We got a bunch of people watching right now. Tim wants this to be the most watched show. I don't know if it's possible here. But so you mentioned, okay, start of January, kind of, we heard
right.
by rumor almost that.
Right. Yeah. That's what the question was.
Yeah, that was the question.
Far from there. Sorry.
So where are we now 2 weeks after January 1st or 3 weeks now?
So, right. So if you think about, so we started learning about this, and then we heard secondarily that kind of this decision had been made from somewhere about, up the chain of command to like start implementing this. Let's get some volume into this program. And our understanding is, again, we don't have any solid communications to prove this, but between 100 and 200 shipments a day are being awarded under the new contract. So
is that a lot or a little? Like, what is that percentage wise, would you say?
So that's about kind of, I would say, roughly 25% of the domestic volume during this time of year. There is speculation that the government might have decided to do what their original phase-in program was, which the contract called for phase-in after a 9-month transition period, to go over a period of 4 months to go 25, 50, 75, 100% for domestic moves. Every 30 days, take an additional 25%. So we think that might be what they're doing. So that's kind of the volume now. But this is, 100, 200 shipments a day compared to the volume we're doing. We're not doing quite that much, but, we pick up 100 shipments a day a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. So right now it's at that rate. When's it supposed to escalate to the next level of volume?
We don't know. I mean, we don't know. Again, speculating that perhaps that the decision has been made to kind of go back to this 4-month rollout. That perhaps maybe when we get to February that there's an intention to again increase the volume that's in this program. I don't know that. That's my opinion.
Yeah. The rumors I had heard were to get up to 50% by February or March, and to get to 100% by, when do you think that we can see that?
Yeah, the last scheduled or the last published schedule showed them getting to peak by April.
Wow. I mean, that's a rapid acceleration. If you go to like 25 to 50 to 100 in a few months, I mean, 4 months, right? And then now you're not only you're talking about going to 100%, but you're talking about doing it from dead of winter to near peak.
Right. So in January, it's 25% of roughly
Half volume. Or
8,000 shipments,
Yeah.
maybe. Probably not even that many. Probably 5,000. I could look at the numbers.
Yeah.
But you get to peak season, we're doing like 9,000 shipments a week.
Wow.
So like you're doing a larger portion of a higher volume. So it's a significant increase for whoever the contractor is to hit these.
Yeah.
Again, going back to this idea about the change management and the effort required to stand this thing up under the best of circumstances, it's really hard. It's a lot.
So what's going to start happening, do you think? I mean, it's
Well-
hard to predict the future, but I mean, you've been doing this for a long time. If anybody could, I mean, you probably have a pretty good feel for it. If you were sitting in that seat, what would happen?
Well, I think what we see happening right now is what I don't have any other way to call it, but other than failure. We have seen an incredible uptick in the number of service failures. We know that there are folks that Megan Harless, for one, we know that she's tracking with several military families that have had service failures. We've seen reviews on the contractor's Facebook page from real customers that are talking about missed pickups, missed deliveries, don't know where their shipments are. It is January in the moving business, and it's slow right now. Everybody that's in this business knows that COD business has been poor, national account business has been poor. We have capacity available. So if we're having service failures at this time of year on really what is pretty low volume, it does not bode well for trying to increase this volume because real military families are getting harmed right now. And I don't know how you call it anything other than a failure based on what we've seen. Again, go back to this idea too about we know that we've seen some of these kind of giveaway lists now that are out there, even though we were told there wouldn't be this kind of tonnage board. These things are expanding rapidly, and there are shipments on there that appear to be past the pickup date. And we're just kind of at the tip of the iceberg. So if you think that, just real quick, if you think that beginning on January 1st, shipments were awarded, those shipments weren't picking up on January 2nd. They're picking up January 21st. You know, it's 2-3 weeks out. Right. So we're just getting to the point where really I think, you know, if you're awarded 100 shipments a day, eventually you have to pick up 100 a day. I think 100 a day. We're just getting to that point now. So I think we're just starting to see the tip of the iceberg of the service failures that are occurring out there to our military families.
Well, and what happens if you don't pick up a shipment on the date you're supposed to pick it up?
In the current program, we get suspended. And if you fail enough and do this often enough, you will get in deeper trouble. You can get put in worldwide non-use. You could get kicked out of the program. And that's from just missing pickups.
How would they do that, though, if they had one contractor, one throat to choke or hand to shake, as we like to say, a little more gently?
Right.
But when you start missing pickups, I mean, you can't suspend the sole contractor.
I know, if there only would have been someone there to tell them that. Yeah.
Sorry, it's a little bit of sarcasm.
No, I mean, that's right. That's right. They can't. I mean, what's happening, what we see happening, what we think we see happening based on the data is that over the last week or so, we have seen an incredible increase in the number of short fuse shipments in the current program. We are
Define short fuse for people that don't.
So short fuse shipments are shipments that are picking up less than 5 days from their required pickup date. So they are awarded kind of outside the normal traffic distribution that the government has. So it's kind of a free for all. They put them out there, then whichever carrier can grab it first off their website is the one that gets it. So we've seen an increase in that, and we think that those are shipments that are being diverted from the GHC back into this program because there's not service provider capacity in that program to handle it.
Yeah, and we're seeing comments here. Get in the comments here with your questions here. We're going to get to your questions. We We got a comment here that says shipper reviews say they are having to move themselves. Have you heard that?
So we've heard that. I mean, I've heard a tremendous number of things. We know that customers are being asked to move themselves, but also some of the customers that originally wanted to do a personally procured move now are not able to, there's not enough revenue in it for them to be able to go out and hire a quality mover. I have a specific example of a customer that had reached out to us and was going to have National move him as a COD. And we gave him a price, and he was all prepared to do this. And then he got an email that said that his request for a personally procured move had been canceled. So he went back into the office and they told him, look, you got to move under this new program. And this is kind of at that time frame when we think they decided, hey, we need to start putting volume into this program. So every shipment that's moving in this channel is now going to be a part of the GHC. And so they had to redo his entitlement. So what happens is a military customer is entitled to get 100% of what they would have paid the mover, whatever the government would have paid the mover.
Basically like a lump sum, basically.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And then you go figure it on your
And
own.
so when he went back in and they reran his lump sum, there wasn't enough money in it for us to move him. Right. So when this was like kind of, again, it's kind of slow out there. This is a max discount. We were given the best deal we could, and it still came out, almost 20% lower than what we could. And it was a worse coverage for him from a liability standpoint than what he would get with the government.
Right.
So, and no packing.
No packing.
And no packing.
Because the government move is full pack.
Government moves full pack. And, we started a program last year called Freedom PPM, really to try to go after these customers, because we think our military customers deserve a great move. We have a great network of providers. And I pulled the plug on all the advertising yesterday because we know that there's not enough revenue in there for us to even cover it without all the burdensome government regulations that we face on the military side of the business now.
Well, and let's be honest too, and get in the comments here, hit that like button, let people know you're out there. Check in with us here. Got a bunch of people watching here on LinkedIn, a bunch of people on Facebook. Shout out to y'all. Get in the comments. Let us know you're there. The whole point of like PPM moves, and back in my day, it was called Diddy moves, right? Do it yourself moves, was that the service member could take it upon themselves to move. Maybe they could put a little money in their pocket, right?
Sure.
I mean, these men and women especially at the lower levels, they don't make a lot of money.
Right.
Right. They could move, they could put a little money in their pocket. But then to say you don't even have enough money to rent a U-Haul or something. I mean, those are the stories I've been hearing.
That's what we've been hearing as well, is there's not enough money in it. So if there's not enough money in it for a military member to hire a reputable professional moving company like National, who are they going to hire? What's going to happen to them? Right. So we know that in the current, what we're seeing out of the GHC so far, lots of service failures. There's not a lot of capacity available. My concern is that they end up going to rogue operators who are going to take advantage of them.
Well, and we see this on the corporate side all the time. You give somebody a $2,500. It's happened to my sister. My sister was moving with a big oil and gas company out of college. She's in Oklahoma. She has to be down in Houston for training, in 3 weeks. They give her $2,500. Which, oh, by the way, she has to pay taxes on. So it's really like $1,500. She can't get a U-Haul with the gas with one night in a hotel for that price.
Right.
A one-way U-Haul.
Right.
Right. So it's like, we can't do this to people. We can't do this to men and women that serve our country.
And that's what we've been talking about too. Not only that, but even under like the current program, members will regularly tell you that every time that they have to move, every time that they have a PCS, that it costs them money out of their pocket. And, that creates problems for the government from a retention standpoint.
All right, we got questions. Put those questions in here. I'm going to ask the questions. We'll see what we know. We'll try to answer the best we can. Let's see here. We got a comment saying 183 on my list still on the street that are supposed to be in transit. 183 shipments. Now, if that's true, and we don't know if that's true, but if that's true, and you had, let's just say National, you run a big moving let's say you had 183 shipments on the street that were supposed to be moved already. What would happen theoretically to your company?
Oh, I'd be down at Scott Air Force Base today.
Yeah, called on the carpet.
Yeah, I fully believe that. 183 is a tremendous number. I don't think, you know, how many years, you know, again, anything can happen on a move. You can miss a pickup. It happens. When it does, you know, you take care of that customer because it's just what you do. But if you have 183 at one time, you know,
in January,
I can't even imagine what that would feel like or look like. I mean, I don't know how many years you'd have to add up before we got to where we had 183 shipments that we left in residence, but it would be years worth of traffic.
Years worth of traffic.
And again, it's January. And this is why was keen to come on this show and why I've been fairly vocal about some of this lately. I think this is the tip of the iceberg. I think we're just starting to see the service failures. This is the ripple. This is not the wave. The wave is coming this week when those shipments start.
You think this week? So
it's 3 weeks from January 1st. If shipment awards were made out, normally it's 20-ish days between award and pickup.
So it's hitting the fan this week.
Volume is picking up. And as long as those shipments are staying in the GHC and not being reverted back to DPS shipments, I think we're going to continue to see growing service failures and outcries from military members.
If you know somebody, if you're watching this right now and you know somebody that is moving in the program right now, please tag them in the comments here, because I'm really curious to hear from folks that are on the curb, right? We always talk about on the curb, service member, the military spouse. I mean, this is what it's all about, right?
That's right.
So I want to hear those perspectives here.
And any military member that sees this or has issues, feel free to call me at National Van Lines. We'll do what we can to help you out.
Yeah, people saying think about the female soldier with kids and dogs and capable of moving herself. Shipments on Help Me. Yeah, the Help Me list. There's how many? 55 shipments on the Help Me list past the RDD. So the Help Me list, I guess, is, you know, the tonnage list that
right.
wasn't supposed to be. That's like, please.
Right. Which I think is a reasonable response. And actually, you know, I kind of, mocked it a little bit, but I think you should have that. Like, that's the way this industry works. I think that's great that you're doing that. You should have that out.
Peak. Usually the tonnage list in January doesn't have a lot on it.
Right.
Yeah. People are checking in here. Rogue movers are taking advantage of the military. John Alanel says, are these rogue movers a real concern if they are in play? What are your thoughts?
I think they are. I mean, they're everywhere, right? They're ubiquitous.
Anytime you go to Google to move, you are in the den of thieves,
right?
Honestly.
And I mean, there's a history of these kinds of companies preying on military families across the country, not just only on moving services, but on a million other things that happen because they know they have young families that they can take advantage of.
Wow. People, questions here. Kevin says, is it true that HSA is able to pocket money from service members if they do a PPM in the GHC?
I do not know.
Yeah, Kevin, I don't know the answer to that. I'd be curious to hear your understanding of how that would work. I'm all ears here. Well, Joyce says The Black Swan by Nassim Taleb is one of my favorite books of all time and also extremely present in the moving industry.
It's a great book. I recommend it to everyone I can.
Rachel Fisher Lyons checking in from beautiful sunny Orlando. Thanks, Rachel. We needed that. As you can tell, I'm getting a lot of sun right now. It's all over my face.
You look angelic. That's what I was thinking.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Cherubic. Tim, do you think the van line CEOs have any unique perspective or concerns about the GHC that are different from those of a moving company or agent owner? Do you think the van line CEOs have any unique perspectives or concerns about the GHC that are different from those of a moving company or agent owner? You sit at a little higher level here. You kind of look at the macro.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think so. Nothing that really jumps off the page to me that I think is really significantly different. I think from our standpoint, looking at the van line, maybe the Service Contract Act compliance might have more of an impact on a van line than it does on a local agent.
Explain that a little bit, because I don't think a lot of people understand the what is it, SCA,
Right.
Service Contract
No one
Act.
understands it, so you can't explain it.
Explain it to the point where we understand what we don't understand about it.
So, right. So one of the concerns about this contract has been the Service Contract Act. So what happens is, because of the way they put out this contract, this idea of the Service Contract Act applies. And this is a rule that was made by the government a few years in 1965, actually. And the goal was to ensure that folks aren't bidding on government contracts and putting a bid so low that they win it, but that bid doesn't include wages enough to cover their costs or to pay their people a living wage. So that applies for the first time in this contract. And all of us in the moving business are trying to understand how to make it apply. In the sense that, our drivers are all independent owner operators, or most of the drivers in this industry are independent owner operators. And the Service Contract Act requires us to pay them an hourly wage plus fringe benefits. And we have to pay them for every hour that they're on duty. We are getting the compensation under this contract. We are getting a fixed amount from the contractor that says, you got 5,000 pounds going 1,000 miles. We're going to give you $6,000, whatever it is. Yep. So we have to make that money work on a shipment. And so if I send out a driver who's an independent contractor and say, hey, I need you to pick up this shipment, I'm going to look at that $6,000 and go, well, you've only got 5 hours to pick up this shipment. That's all I can afford to pay you. That puts them under control. And then we fail the independent owner operator test. So it has the risk of making all these guys employees. That's been a concern that we've had.
Well, if they're an employee, but they're bringing a tractor or tractor trailer to the, $150,000 piece of equipment to the table, plus all the, other equipment they bring inside that trailer, and they all own that. How are they being compensated for that if they're being compensated on an hourly basis for their time?
Well, and these are the questions, right? So then I have to make sure that driver, after he has a business, after he covers his expenses, gets that minimum wage, gets that wage, whatever the wage is called. They get that prevailing wage. Yeah, that's the phrase, that they get that. So theoretically, I have to be able to subtract out his cost of running his business to ensure that he's actually getting that much in take-home pay. So it becomes incredibly complex. It becomes incredibly expensive because, well, you think every driver's got a different situation, right? Some of them are paying it. Some of them are old tractors. Some of them are new.
Paid off versus not.
There's a million things, right? There's a million things. Insurance, right? All that, right? Yep. Right. So how do we manage that? So we've been asking. So another question is, if the driver goes and makes the pickup and then goes and parks at the truck stop overnight, he still has custody of that shipment. And the Department of Labor gentleman that I spoke with indicated that if he has custody, he has to get paid.
He's working.
If that's the case,
even though he might be sleeping,
even though he
may not be legally allowed to work because he's doing his reset.
He's off duty.
Yeah, he's off duty.
He's off duty as a professional driver, but he still has custody of that shipment. And the indication was we'd have to pay him for all those hours. So now we have to pay drivers 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We've asked these questions to the Department of Labor. We've had a million attempts to try to get some of these questions answered. None of them are answered, and yet still there's shipments moving in the interstate long distance program. I don't know how they're making sure that is being complied with.
And who
right
accepts the risk, to your understanding and your interpretation, who accepts the risk for that compliance as these shipments are moving right now?
I really think it's a joint risk. I think there's a risk to the provider and there's a risk to the prime contractor. I think both of them could get in trouble for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Unless, yes. Now, when I was managing tonnage in the military arena, we would always write our agreements as contractors to subrogate risk down to the service provider.
Right.
And I know that a lot of agents subrogate it down to the driver, right? I mean, the driver usually ends up holding the bag at the end of the day.
Right.
If I don't make money on a shipment, you don't make money on a shipment, kind of a thing.
Right.
And so I wonder how these agreements are written now, and if the contractor accepts any risks in that situation, because from all I can hear and all the IAM and ATA meetings I've been to, nobody has clarity around this, and yet here we are moving shipments.
Right. We've tried. I mean, really, I've been parts of the ATA effort to American Trucking Association effort to try to engage with the Department of Labor, both Home Safe and with Transcom. And we've had conversations about, hey, we need clarification. And, it's really disappointing that we can't get some of these basic questions answered. And then one other thing on that too, is that even if we got that answered, we had an answer. Now I know what my risk as a business is, right? Because I didn't know that, but I still have, I have a computer that I have to program too. So I'm going to have to go through, even if we got this, all the van lines are going to have to go through and reprogram all their computers to make sure that they pay their agents and their drivers appropriately based on some kind of a new rule. Also, and again, if these guys become employees, that flips the entire model upside down. And I think it's ridiculous that the government's creating an opportunity to redo an entire industry. It's like not something they should be doing, right? You need to look at the industry that you're buying from and try to figure out a way to buy from it that's consistent with the way that it's set up. Transcom doesn't have the scope or breadth of knowledge and expertise to make a decision about how our businesses should be set up.
Fred says, if I was getting paid 24/7, I might still be driving.
You mean just be sitting somewhere. You don't have to drive.
Hey,
Why waste the gas?
That's moving I could do, Fred. Even I could do that, Fred. Shoot, man. I might have found the first job I could do in the moving business. Yeah, that's super interesting. So how come this wasn't, I don't want to dwell too much on this, but how come this wasn't a part of the current DP3 program, this whole SCA compliance and everything and all this weird kind of labor bylaws and stuff?
Right. So we're exempted from it under the current program because it's a tariff-based program. And there's part of that law from 1965 that says that if you have a tariff and you're filing rates against it, that you are exempt from the Service Contract Act.
And now this isn't tariff based because a contractor just came in and said, I can pay, I can charge X to do this amount of work.
They've made it a FAR-based contract, which includes SCA. And again, this goes back to kind of General Lyon's decision to put this out. Look, Transcom has a big acquisitions department, right? So this is what they do all day long. They're writing FAR contracts. This is what they do. And so I think when he looks at this and goes, geez, how do I fix this? Well, we need to make it a contract like we make everything else. When you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right?
Right?
And that's exactly what they did without really understanding our industry. And why didn't we understand the Service Contract Act when this came out? Because none of us had ever done it before.
Get in the comments here. I want to hear your questions here. We don't have a ton of time left, so we got time for a couple more questions, a couple more thoughts here. Let me know. Really, really interesting stuff. I've got my mind's going a lot of different directions here. Let's see. Will Joyce says, I heard in New Orleans that the SCA, as the ATA meeting, I heard in New Orleans that SCA compliance was a simple explanation. Did that guy ever get back with answers on the SCA problem when his boss got off vacation?
No. We have engaged with him many times. He is not in a position to give us specific answers. So we just don't know. So again, we keep asking. We've been told that there was going to be kind of a joint effort to create a compliance guide. And really, there's not been any meetings on that. There's not been any real movement forward to try to get that done.
Great here. Next question. Allison McDaniel says, what is the status of the recently filed lawsuits?
So
tell us about the lawsuits real quick. And then
sure. So I will give this at the highest level of kind of explanation. There's probably quite a bit more to it than what I'll put out here. But the easiest way to understand this is when the government put out the RFP and said, hey, we'd like you to bid on this. Here's our requirements. We need you in 9 months, a 9-month time frame, to stand up your IT. And after 9 months, on day one, you're going to do 25% of the shipments. And then 30 days later, 50%, 30 days later, 75%, and then finally 100%. That's what the requirement was in the contract. And What the reality is that it took 15 months before the first shipment was ever moved. And as of the end of December,
So instead of 9 months, like 15 months?
yeah.
Okay.
And then as in December, we were still only at about 1,000 shipments that had moved. Again, less than 0.1%. That's not what they asked for. Transcom in the meetings we're in had started referring to it as a conditions-based rollout. I don't see conditions-based rollout anywhere in the RFP.
So are you saying when this was originally bid, people might have bid it differently?
Absolutely.
If they knew that
Sure.
they could have slow rolled this thing?
Sure. A perfect example is someone like National. We've been doing this for a long time. We have proprietary software that we've created, programs that we've created to manage this business over the years. However, we have not been able to innovate our software because the government won't allow us to. And I'll give you 2 specific examples. One is the current DP3 program. We do not have a 2-way interface to exchange data with the government. We've been asking for that since the mid-2000s, literally almost 20 years.
What's the benefit of a 2-way interface?
That I don't have to type in data into my system. Like I could put in a delivery date in my system and it would automatically transfer into their system.
Push it back to them. Got it.
Right? So it's that.
So you can get an order one way, but you can't send data back.
Well, we get orders, we get email alerts. That's what happens,
Wow.
right? We have to log in, and fortunately, we've had
You have a no-way data interface right now.
right. So we've had
Well, that's
third-party providers who do a great job and are a great benefit to our industry. Shout out to you, Sandra, there, that help us do that. But we couldn't do that without them. So that's one way. So our system has not been updated. Second way is we've been discouraged from innovation. So even up to 3 or 4 years ago, right before the pandemic, carriers were getting suspended for having electronic inventories because they weren't approved in the regulations, right? So we had to keep we've been expected to keep kind of a dumb software, right? And so for us to go look at this and go, geez, can we build something in 9 months to do all the things they wanted to do? I'll tell you what, if I showed up today and I told a customer, hey, you got to download an app, I'd get in trouble for that, right? And that's what the new contractor, the big thing, hey, we got this app. Well, that's great. We've not been allowed to innovate. It's been regulation after regulation after regulation.
Right.
So we look at that and go, well, gee, can we do that in 9 months? I don't think I can. Now, if I knew I was going to have an unlimited amount of time or a lot more time and some more money, that changes the calculus for us on how to bid on it and or who to partner with. So that represents what is considered in the government contracting a cardinal change. The government has made a cardinal change from their original requirements. They're not expecting out of the contractor what they ask for the contractors to bid on. And so that's the basis of the lawsuits.
Yeah, really interesting. Get in the comments here. Got a couple questions more. I mean, how much of this problem? I mean, it sounds like the economics of this, are prohibitive for folks. I mean, that's my observation here. So, we're sitting here in January and there's missed pickups and missed deliveries, according to what we're seeing in the comments here. I mean, I've never heard of that before. And so all I can think is that in a free market economy, that something's broken here, but how much of this also is like during the bid process, I heard that like they leaked or somehow a memo was leaked with the target price of this contract. Right. So it's like now, I mean, this is almost like kind of pre-COVID almost, right? So you got pre-COVID numbers that are floating around saying like, okay, we think this is going to be X. And now everyone knows, well, I guess the answer to the test is going to be this, let's make our math to get to there. And now here we are 4 years later having to like figure out how to move stuff at that rate under those conditions. And like, I don't know, it just seems like a total false start, a total like mistrial.
No, I think there's a lot to be said about that idea and that comment. So, right. So when this came out, yeah, there was a memo or something that came out somewhere that said, hey, kind of we don't expect the bid to be higher than this. And then we were told, no, that's not the maximum bid. But I think everybody probably took it that way. And then, what happened over the pandemic with regards to pricing, and kind of the economics and the cost of all of our supplies, our labor, all the corrugated packaging that we use.
Oh my gosh.
Everything. Trucks,
Packaging
everything.
prices.
Everything
Trucks,
is,
yeah.
everything has went up dramatically. Now,
Labor costs.
there were economic price adjustments available for the contractor that are inflation based. So there's opportunities to bid that in there. But one of the things to remember too is that there was a protest and there was an opportunity for all the bidders to rebid in 2021. And so we talk about these bids originally being pre-COVID. Really, these bids were put in, finalized in 2021. So there was an opportunity for everyone to make an adjustment up or down or whatever they wanted. There was an opportunity there for folks to make an adjustment in 2021.
Okay. Yeah, really interesting. We got people checking in here. Hit that like button. Let's see here. Melody, it has always been on agents that do non-temp storage. Don't know exactly what that means.
Service Contract Act is always applied to agents doing non-temp storage.
Okay. Well, those are local crews.
Those guys
right?
are coming home every night.
Yeah.
That's a big difference.
Yeah, having terminal contractors or employees locally is different because you're not paying them to sleep. Let's be honest, right? That's like to your example before.
Right.
You're not sitting in a truck stop somewhere sleeping for a 10-hour reset or whatever that number is.
Yeah, and typically on a local basis too, you're not having mixed loads. You don't have a COD shipment and a national account shipment and a military shipment on the same trailer.
Oh my gosh.
That creates some other funky outcomes. And also, again, if thinking about it from a van line perspective about how we would pay a driver under this Service Contract Act, that, how do we apportion the costs against the revenue? It's complex math.
Is there an assumption that the only thing on these trailers is military shipments?
I don't know what the assumption is.
I mean, because to your point, like you're governing a driver based on they got one shipment on there's military. Well, if they got a national account shipment and a COD shipment.
Right. So in that hypothetical, like that I said, where he's at the truck stop, now the next day he's got to get up and drive, up to Wisconsin to go make a pickup on a shipment, a COD shipment. Well, he's working as a driver and he's pulling that. Then, maybe they'd say, well, if he's parked overnight, he's not responsible. We don't have to pay him the per hour. We don't have to pay him the prevailing wage. But then on that drive, he is working. That shipment's on there. Do we got to pay him then? Again, all these, and then how do we apportion that cost for that shipment against the other shipments that are on that trailer that are paid? We pay them a percentage. That's what this entire industry has always been. That's why tariffs work. It's you get a percentage of what we're paying the customer as a service provider.
People are really wanting to know about these PPMs. Who decides PPM compensation under this contract?
So it's a matter of law. So in law, the government is required to reimburse or pay the member what they would pay the mover, 100% of what they would pay the mover. So the information coming out where there is not enough money for the military members to do it themselves validates the concerns that have been made by many regarding the overall compensation structure of this contract.
Got it. Okay. Wow. All right. Super interesting here. Get in the comments here if you got any other questions. I know we're running a little long. It's a meaty topic here.
I'll add in one other thing too about the lawsuits. Just, I know everybody will want to ask this is, what's the timeline? Yeah. Timeline has oral arguments occurring on March 19th. Typical time for the judge to decide from that could be 4 to 6 weeks. There's no it's always 20 days or whatever, so it could be. But that's kind of a typical timeline to get a ruling on something like that.
How does that line up with the expectation for 100% of the stuff to be going through by, somebody said May 15th? Is it okay, we're going to push 100% of volume through this thing before the lawsuits can be completed? I mean, is there any coincidence there that's lined up that way?
I can't. It's only speculation that I would have about what the government's intent is with rolling up rolling out, ramping up the program at this point in time.
Melody says we did short haul intra combined with NTS in Texas. Believe me, it's a payroll nightmare.
Right.
Jeez.
Yeah. So add drivers that are out for weeks or months at a time, and loads that are mixed, and just it really becomes
non-temp storage is NTS and short haul intra. So you got stuff going a relative long distance. It could be going from Austin to San Antonio or San Antonio to El Paso or whatever. And then you got non-temp storage, basically local moving in and out of storage. Really, really interesting. So what is your advice, or, what's your advice to government and, Transcom as they're sitting here, if they're watching this right now? I mean, what advice are you giving to let's say to them first?
Sure. I mean, I appreciate the opportunity that you're giving us to what I refer to as petitioning the government. I am hopeful that there are folks that are watching this that are either in the service headquarters, that are in Congress or their staff, or even at Transcom or somewhere up the chain of command, military folks. They need to stop the bleeding. This is failing. There are real military families that are getting injured as a result of this. At the end of the day, it comes down to a readiness issue as well, in the sense that if these folks can't get to where they need to be, in the seats, at the desk, in the bombers, wherever they need to be, right, it's hurting our ability to protect our country. And it's not fair. We know that the capacity exists in the program that we currently have. We know that those shipments are getting picked up and serviced on time. We know that there are drivers for all the van lines out there right now that are looking for tonnage. Stop making our military members suffer. Like, we've been telling you that this is a likely outcome, and here it is in the first effort to ramp up. These are not growing pains. This is systemic problems with the lack of service provider capacity available to the new contractor, and something needs to give. I am afraid that, again, what we're seeing is the tip of the iceberg, and that we're going to see this become a national story in the next couple of weeks as military members continue to have poor service on their household goods shipments.
Is there, let's say this thing, blows up or continues to fail or whatever, becomes non-viable at some point, and we still have the original issues, as it seems to me, that brought this thing to a head in the first place, and said, okay, we want to go out to do a contract like this, superior, military family experience, maybe some cost cutting measures, maybe some transparency. How would you solve for those things, assuming that, this isn't the answer? How do you solve for, I think somebody's at the door. How do you solve for those things? I mean, do you have any ideas about that? Because, those things still theoretically are an issue for somebody to solve.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a trillion ideas on how to solve this. I'm waiting.
Yeah, we're short on ideas.
I'm waiting for the call to become the PCS czar.
PCS czar. You throwing your hat in the ring.
But I have some. I mean, there are some real ideas, and I don't think it's that. I think we've overcomplicated all of this program so much. I think the regulatory environment that we operate in is just, it's overkill. Like, we have, we're told don't break a mirror. Like, we know we shouldn't break a mirror, right? What we should be doing is getting a high measure of customer satisfaction and awarding more shipments to those people that do a better job. There are a lot of different ways to do that. There's folks that have vested interests in this business that are going to be concerned about having their business taken away or changed or all that kind of stuff. But there are ways to go about do this that's incremental, that would improve service levels to our military customers, that would also maintain your current supply chain that is resilient, because if National goes out of business tomorrow, all the other carriers out there will be able to pick up the slack. And if any of them go out, we'll be able to pick up the slack. So they have resilience from this service failure problem. I think there's a lot of simple solutions that we could go at, but part of it is lowering the regulations, letting us innovate on quality, measuring actual quality, and rewarding those guys that are doing a good job.
Yep. I would like to see you run in a hot wash one day, Tim. I might sit in the front row of that one and give you peace of my mind for once. Let's see here.
Are you sure you can spare a piece of it?
Yeah, I think.
Hey,
Hey. Let's see. We got a couple comments here. One DOL speaking early on said that the Department of Labor, I believe, speaking on early on said that if the driver diverted at end of day to visit someone the next morning when getting in the truck to proceed would need to be paid at the SCA wage, even for that travel time returning from the diversion. Also the question, RE shipment pickup location dictating wages even for later services in other locations. We're interested in tracking future clearer answers to assist customers with job costing. Awesome. Thank you for that, Sandra. Jay Peroni checking in. As an international forwarder in the current DP3 program, the GHC is an existential threat to my business, but I stopped being worried about the GHC putting me out of business a while ago. It's obvious that Home Safe pay schedule is non-compensatory. I don't even know what that word means, which is why they can't get their shipments covered, and that is plainly not a sustainable model. Exactly how it all collapses is unknown, but it's inevitable. All right, some big words there, Jake. Don't know what they all mean.
I'll just say Jake is a fantasy football champion.
Yeah, Jake's letting that fantasy football championship go to his head, I think. Here's a question: thoughts on domestic CFAC in DP3? You know, I mean, is that an alternative to what we have now with GHC?
So that's if you've been following along, that's something that's been proposed. What came out on December 4th, I think, was when that was initially proposed to industry. Domestic CFAC, I think there's not been any connection made to how that would improve service to the military customer. I don't see what the point of doing that is at this point in the game, especially if they're still intending to stand up GHC. It doesn't make any sense to disrupt the current models that exist. I know a lot of people have issues with that, but the reason CFAC is restricted on international is rooted in the history of the program. And that's because at one point there was incentive traffic awarded to whoever set the lowest rate in a particular international channel. So what having CFAC limitations did was if National Van Lines files a really low rate, I get 20% of all the traffic or some number like that. Mm-hmm. And then if I have a second company, after I get my 20% and get my incentive right at the beginning of the cycle, I have an opportunity to cancel my rate. My rate doesn't exist anymore. Now it goes to my second company, who also has a rate that's just a little higher than that. So that's why that exists on the international market. The incentive traffic's never been on the domestic side of the business. So having it apply it's like a tool used for a different thing, right? It's not it was created for the international, it was created for this specific problem in the international market. That problem doesn't exist in the domestic market. So I don't know what they think it's going to improve. That's what I can't get any understanding
I mean,
of.
I think what it might improve would be that the shipper knows who's actually handling their shipment, right? Like, okay, it goes to, Ben Cross Moving and Storage of Dallas, Texas, and then I call Ben Cross Moving and Storage and they know where it is, they got it. And then if Ben Cross only owns one moving company, then he has to live with the scores that he generates and can't burn and turn. And
right. So I understand that, but I would say that military customers, I can only speak for national, but I know that there are many of our competitors that operate in a very similar way. When we get awarded a shipment, that customer knows who to call. They are made well aware of who has their shipment and who their point of contact is. Mm-hmm. And I've heard that idea that folks don't know who to call. I think maybe a few years ago,
right,
when kind of the move managers were kind of on the rise in this industry. And I know there's some people that don't like the idea of move managers and CFAC. This is the program. This is the business response to the program the government has put together, right? So if you put up rules, there's incentives, folks are going to figure out a way to operate within those rules, right? So this is just, we have what they've created, right? And it's like kind of this idea like, well, we don't like what we created, so now we're going to tear it down. I think it's it's disingenuous in a lot of ways. Again, a lot of folks have really committed their capacity to the DoD over the years, including national, and they just kind of go, we want to change this now. Well, what's it going to help? Well, we don't really know what's going to help. Again, I think there are ways to go about making incremental changes that they could talk about that we could, again, I have some ideas on this. I'm waiting for the call.
You're waiting for the call to be the PCSR. My cameras are weird things. My face is so washed out from the blinding sun in Broadview, Illinois. The view is so broad, and my camera is searching for me. It's like, is there a human being there amongst all this sunlight? It really has no idea. It's like looking at my hand. It's like, that must be a face. I've never been mistaken for my own hand before. There we go. Up here, guys. All right. Very good. All right, let's do this. Everyone sticks around for the overrated, underrated, Tim. That's what they want. We make them eat their dinner, but they came for dessert. All right. Let's have a little bit of fun here with a little overrated, underrated. Okay. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. It's a complicated game. Do you know the rules?
Why don't you give me the rules? I don't want to violate any rules.
Yeah. We want to be.
I'm a rule follower. I'm a rule follower.
The rules are easy. There's really basically only 2 rules, okay? 1, I'm going to give you a topic. You are going to tell me if it's either overrated or underrated. Those are your 2 options. Don't deviate.
Am I allowed to add commentary?
Explanation? You'll need to.
Okay.
And then the second rule is I'll tell you if you're right or wrong. All right. Let's get into it. First one up, overrated, underrated. PPM moves.
Probably underrated.
Yeah. Why is that?
I just think that the government hasn't done anything to really promote that program. It just kind of exists.
Yeah.
There's not really, in our efforts to try to kind of get into this marketplace and make ourselves available to these customers.
Yeah.
There's really not anybody really kind of, hey, we need to make this available. Like, customers don't know about it.
Yeah, they don't know about it. Yeah, I was pushing PPM moves back in the day for a lot of years, and yeah, and it was every base was different. You had to figure out every nut to crack at each base, and
we've experienced transportation personnel negotiating storage rates with the customers. Like, well, no, that's like they're supposed to get an entitlement that's equal to, it's not negotiable, right? But that's exactly
it's just gotta be well funded. Tim Quirks is underrated. You know what, Tim? You're right. The 2 Tims. You're right. 1 point for Tim Helenthal. All right, next one up. ESOPs, overrated, underrated.
Underrated.
What is an ESOP?
An ESOP is an employee stock ownership program. National is a proud 100% employee-owned company. It is a great way to reward your people for being a part of the solution and being part of the growth of the company. We've been an ESOP since 2011, and over those years, we've paid out several $1 million to our employees that have retired. So It's a great way for them. It's really kind of a retirement benefit is the way it's set up. Wow. And I think it's fantastic.
So if somebody leaves, like they get a bunch of money?
They will get some money.
Like I'm going to leave today.
Right. You're not vested. You got a vest.
Got it. You don't even wear a vest. Like
You've got a jacket, but you're
not
vested.
vested. But I'm not vested.
Right.
All right. Hey, that sounds pretty good. So what's the difference between that and like Glomo? Glomo, like I own the company. I'm an employee. Doesn't work like that?
No, because what happens is under an ESOP is that every year we have to have an outside company come in and do a valuation of National.
Oh, wow.
And then they assign us a stock price. And every year employees of National get awarded shares of stock. And those shares of stock have a value as determined by the outside valuation company.
That's cool. And that, I imagine that's got to really impact retention.
It's a great benefit for folks. Absolutely.
That's really cool. Yeah, I like that idea. You know what? I'll give you 2 points. 2 points.
2 points
right,
for Gryffindor.
Doing good for Gryffindor. All right, next one up. All right, this one's kind of tough. Overrated, underrated. The St. Louis Cardinals.
The St. Louis Cardinals are underrated as well. They are by far the best baseball team in the history.
Is there any empirical evidence to support that?
Yes, I have one data point, which is my opinion, and so I'm 100%.
Fortunately, that's 100% of what you need on the show.
Confidence, right?
That's cool. Greatest St. Louis Cardinal.
Greatest St. Louis Cardinal, Stan Musial.
Yeah, Yeah, Stan the man.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. You're saying some big things about the Cards here. I mean, I'm not in a position to disagree, but I can't possibly agree. You know, yeah, Tim Quirk says overrated. Tim Quirk apparently is the judge, jury, and executioner on this show. You know, Tim, I go with you. I mean, overrated sounds harsh, but definitely not underrated. So overrated. I mean, how are the Cards doing? How'd they do last year?
They did not do so well last year.
Okay, well,
But they have for many years not done the traditional, you know, build a good team and then just let it all go and become the cellar dweller, get all the draft picks, and then build back up. They've been able to maintain a pretty good team for a long period of time without going through that phase. So
I'll say Cards fans are very loyal. A big following of St. Louis Cardinal fans.
I always compare us to Packer fans.
Yeah.
Like small market team, really team fans are invested in the team in a really deeply personal way, and have always been able to put out pretty good teams in spite of having maybe not the economics of like, you know, some of the big market teams.
You're winning me over here. Mike Falia says Andre Palante, coming back to the Cards. He's coming back. Didn't know.
That's great.
Didn't know he left. We're a fan. You know what? All right, Tim, you've changed my mind. You know what? I'm gonna give you a point for that one. I'm feeling magnanimous today. It's chilly out.
Got sun shining on you.
Yeah, the heart is warm. All right, next one up here. We got a lot today. Overrated, underrated. Caleb Williams, Bears quarterback. Getting a lot of heat this year. This is his rookie year.
It's his rookie year.
Yeah, but there's also a rookie that's playing in the conference championship.
I know.
Right
I
now.
think it's
Kind of hard,
I would say for this year he was overrated coming into the year as far as from the perspective of Bears fans expecting him to be able to do what Daniels has done with the Commanders. But I think over time that I think his story is yet to be told.
That's so nice of you. Stories yet to be. I mean, yeah. You know, I mean, we're getting a lot of overrated. This seems to be a consensus pick here. You know, I think I'm going to say underrated. I'm going to tell you why. Because everybody's dogging him right now. And he can't possibly be overrated at this point.
Yeah.
Everybody's beating up on this kid, and he showed some flashes and just didn't end super well. But, you know, the problem with a lot of these great quarterbacks, they go to these bad teams that don't have great defenses, they don't have great O-lines, they may not have the best coach, yada, yada. You got all these systemic problems, which is why they picked high in the draft. Right. And then you stick this kid on there, you know, year one, you don't let him sit. You know, he's not like Jordan Love. He gets to sit behind Rodgers, or Rodgers sitting behind Favre, et cetera, right? And you just toss him to the Wolves, you know. And then every once in a while you have a black swan event like a Jaden Daniels who comes out and is great as a rookie. And everyone's like, oh, well, everybody should be great as a rookie. Well, Peyton Manning won one game. Troy Aikman won 2 games as a rookie, you know?
Yeah, Manning had a bunch of interceptions too. I don't remember what that was. So if you look at Williams' numbers, they weren't great. They weren't bad for a rookie quarterback. I think he had a lot of adversity with some bad luck. We have, I think, some challenges within the coach. I think he ended up with a new offensive coordinator, a new head coach. I think their offensive line could use a lot of help. He didn't have any time to sit in the pocket and make passes. So, he was basically running for his life. Most sacked quarterback in the National Football League this year. So, as a rookie, it's pretty tough when you get up to that speed and all those guys are fast and the game is faster. It's a lot to overcome.
Hit that like button. Get in the comments here. I want to know what you think. We've actually got I'm gonna say he's underrated here. Did you say under or over?
I said I don't know what I said.
You said his story's yet to be written.
I think underrated
something
for this
romantic
year, maybe.
like that. All right, fine. We're gonna give him a point here. Let's see here. You know what we run the show real loose. Okay. We've got a new overrated, underrated being suggested here. Shout out to Derek Potter from Fort Worth. Derek would like to submit for consideration Tim's golf game. Overrated or underrated?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question because I don't know that anyone has ever rated my golf game. I think my golf game is not rated at all. But I will tell you this: that my only aspiration in golf is to be a bogey golfer, and I refuse to get a lesson. Right, so I don't want to ruin it. I don't ever want to become a golfer that has an expectation to be good. I had a friend of mine say about my golf game, who is a teaching pro, actually. He said about my game, he said, I'm at the perfect handicap because I'm capable of hitting a good shot, but I don't expect to hit a good shot. So I don't want to ruin my fun walks on Sundays with expectations that are too high.
Do you have fun when you golf?
I do.
Well, I think that's all that's important. I cannot have fun when I golf. So you're at the right handicap, my friend. All right. Overrated, underrated. Next one up here. Lou Malnati's pizza.
Is there like a appropriately rated? Is that an answer?
Properly rated is that story's yet to be written.
Well, I guess I would say it's underrated because not everybody's had it, so there aren't enough reviews in. We have a low response rate, I think, overall from a national standpoint.
Not statistically valid.
Not statistically valid, so we have to award it some neutral pizzas in order to get statistical validity.
I think Lou Malnati's is the best deep dish pizza in Chicago. Feel free to disagree. Get in the comments here. I'm sure people are gonna have opinions about that, but that's one that I crave. When I touch down O'Hare, I'm like, okay, when am I getting Lou's? When am I getting it? Yeah, you got to order it like 45 minutes in advance, maybe longer when it's this cold. I don't know if that affects temperatures or not.
Yeah, you got to have the right conditions, right? No, it's fantastic pizza. You can't go wrong with it.
Yeah. All right, we're in for that one. So I think you're up to like 5 points or something crazy right now. Tim's going for the record. We got another one for him. Overrated, underrated. Chicago hot dogs.
Chicago hot dogs. So
Chicago. Let me rephrase. A Chicago dog.
A Chicago dog is a very specific dog.
Yeah.
Like it's made a specific way.
Super.
Right.
A lot of ingredients.
A lot of ingredients. There's a special relish. It's got the sport peppers. It's got mustard. And that's what everyone in Chicago wants to understand that, there's only one way to make it. And so as not a native Chicagoan, when I come up here and I have a hot dog and I put ketchup on it, the Chicago hot dog mafia starts yelling at me that you cannot put ketchup on a hot dog. And I beg to differ because, one, I'm an innovator.
Yeah, you are.
And two is that a Chicago dog doesn't have ketchup on it. That's a specific kind of dog. A hot dog is just a piece of meat, and you are allowed to innovate with it in whatever ways that you prefer. There are other kinds of dogs. I've enjoyed what was described to me as a Seattle dog, which was cream cheese and jalapenos on a hot dog. I thought it was delightful.
Fresh or pickled jalapenos?
So pickled, pickled jalapenos. Yeah. So do I think they're overrated? Yes, I think they're overrated.
Yeah. I mean, that's another thing I want when I touch down. I'm looking around because that's actually something you can get in the airport. That's as good as it is outside the airport.
We got a guy about a half a block away right over here. He's probably a hot dog stand.
Yeah.
The National has kept in business for all these years.
Yeah.
They have great dogs.
It's probably the only thing you can get at the airport that's as good as outside the airport. I always crave them when I touch down here. And I'm always like, why did I eat that? At the end, I fell for it again, but I have to have one. I love the sport peppers. They're so clumsy. The big old tomato slice.
It's not a very easy thing to eat.
It's like a salad bar.
Right.
But I enjoy it. Get in here. We have another suggestion, actually, from Tim Quirk. Wants you to rate Bill's Mafia. Overrated, underrated.
Bill's Mafia. I don't even know what that is.
Tim,
or is this the Buffalo Bills fan base? Fan base. So,
they have a really engaged fan base.
I'm all behind the Bills doing great in the playoffs. I'd love to see them bring home a championship. I'm a bad Bears fan, so I tend to find other teams.
Bad Bears fan.
Have to find other teams to root for in the playoffs. And I'd love to see the Bills go all the way this year, so I'll be pulling for them.
Yeah, Bills are a fun team to root for, and their fan base is fantastic.
Well, Tim Quirk's part of their fan base, so I think they're They're not overrated. They're underrated because I mean Tim's fantastic.
Well, Tim's funny because he's up in Western New York. So you're like, oh yeah, Bill's Mafia all day long. Probably got tats on his like neck, say like Jim Kelly.
I know the answer to this question. He's a Packers fan.
Packer fan.
I know this. Yeah.
He's a low down, dirty, closet Packer fan.
He was in town when the Bears missed the field goal had the blocked field goal to lose the game to the Packers. So
Caleb Williams wasn't overrated that game, was he?
Right.
No, he wasn't. Shout out to Tim Quirk. Love you. Roger Wise checking in says, come to Phoenix. We have a Lou Malnati's here now. Nice. Finally something to do in Phoenix. All right. Awesome. Next one up here, Samara. You're doing well. Is this our last one, Samara? Last one. Make it count. He's pitching a no-no right now. Or the opposite of a no-no. He's hitting everything. It's bad for the cycle. Overrated, underrated. Hawaii.
Now, Hawaii is rated pretty high, right? Everyone rates Hawaii.
It's kind of got a big brand. It kind of has for a long time.
I don't think you can overrate it. It's beautiful and fabulous, and I've been there a few times for work actually, and I am always looking for any excuse or reason to get back there. So I would say that even though that it is rated super high by the whole world, it's still underrated.
What's one thing maybe that's underrated about Hawaii that people don't talk enough about? I've never been to Hawaii before. And I'm like, Hawaii's been like hot forever since my whole lifetime. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I feel like there's a lot of new places that are like, oh, you got to check this, you got to check that. And I feel like Hawaii just kind of like gets forgotten. Although recently, this last like holiday season, I had 4 or 5 different customer friends of mine. Hey, I'm checking in. How you doing? Oh, I'm going to Hawaii. Like everybody's going to Hawaii. Yeah. Super producer Samara over here. She went to Hawaii. Everyone's going to Hawaii. So what am I missing? What do I not know about it?
So, I mean, my experience has been, I've always been able to enjoy really great food out there, which I don't think that's something people talk about.
What kind of food? What kind of food? Because I'm not digging the spam. What kind of food is it?
Everybody enjoys, right, the weather, right? Yeah. But we've had all sorts of kind of different experiences at many different restaurants. We were at a great Italian restaurant that we went to when we were there. Right. Yeah. And it was fantastic. Wow. And again, just some surprising kinds of food opportunities there. What's the big grill? The Kona grills there. That's fabulous. Just all those kinds of things. The one thing that might be overrated, if you've done it once, you don't need to do again. That's the luau at the hotel. Yeah. Like, I get it. It's cool. But like kind of like I've been to 3 maybe. They're all kind of the same.
It's like hibachi. Like
right.
Hibachi
right. I mean, it's cool. You should do it once, but you don't need to do it a bunch of times. This would be so.
Gotcha. Checking in here, Daisy Sinclair. Lots of Hawaii travel this past holiday. Yeah, for sure. It's a hot ticket. Tim, you might have just went 7 for 7. I think. I'm
not surprised, really.
Yeah. No, it's on brand for you.
I think you underrated my ability to do this.
I think I did, and I apologize for that. No, this has been great, Tim. You've been a lot of fun. Thanks for having me here at headquarters and talking about GHC, talking about everything that's going on. And you want to leave anyone with maybe a final thought before we sign off?
Yeah, sure. I thank you for the opportunity again to talk about some of the things that are going on. Appreciate all that you do in the industry. I think I've loved to see your growth over the years. Love what you're doing. I think with regards to the GHC contract and things that are going on there, if you are out there and you're hearing things that have concerns or from military members that are having problems, again, try to funnel those to myself. I'm chairman of the American Trucking Association's Government Traffic Committee. So we want to know what's going on out there. We want to make sure that the folks that need to be aware of the situation on the ground are being made aware of the situation on the ground. And, a lot of you folks are closer to it because you're there at the local transportation offices in those local areas. You're the boots at the curb. I'd love to get your feedback here about, again, any kind of problems that we have. I believe that we need to make sure that our elected officials understand what's happening and that action needs to be taken to prevent more harm to our military customers.
Well said. Well said. Hey, everybody, thanks for tuning in today. Hit that like
Thanks,
button.
everyone.
Leave some love in the comments here. Hey, we're going to be live at Mini Moves HQ tomorrow, and then we're going to be at the Capitol in DC on Thursday talking about the impacts to the global mobility industry from all angles, tax, immigration, policy, etc., with the new administration coming in. So stay tuned with us. We're going to be all over. I'll be freezing my butt off in several different states this week for you. So please do tune in. Thanks, everybody. Take care, y'all.